as you get closer to retiring, it can seem like all of your friends are retiring before you. Or if you're in your 30s or 40s, it's super helpful to know, when is it that people are actually retiring and what's the situation that they're in? So you can match up. Do you want to retire in your 40s or your 50s? And what does that situation look like? So let's just jump right in and look at this data from Gallup. And let's start off with what percent of people age 40 to 44 years old are retired? Not many. It's about 1%. And we're going to put an asterisk towards all of these numbers for people that are retiring before 65, because there's a really important caveat that we need to talk about. But for now, let's just go through the data. 45 to 49 years old, it's about 2% of people are retired. 50 to 54, it's about 6%. So this is all people 50 to 54. So even if they had retired at 40 to 44, as they move into that 50 to 54 category, that's all. So 6% of Americans age 50 to 54 are retired. Now, as we get to 55 to 59, we see that it's about 11% of people. And I think retiring in your 50s, if you can do it, if your financial situation can support it, I think that can be a really special time. It's what I call the youth of your senior years. You still have all of your energy, all of your enthusiasm, importantly, all of your mental acuity. And for the first time in your life, you might have all three of the essentials for a happy retirement, or really just to be able to retire. And that is, you've got time, you've got money, and hopefully you still have your health. And unfortunately, those are jumping around on us, particularly our health. We're going to get to that later in the video. Okay, we talked about 55 to 59-year-olds, that's 11%, 60 to 64-year-olds. Now we're into the sweet spot. 32% of 60 to 64-year-olds are retired. So about a third of people retire before 65. Of course, that means 2/3 of people do not. So let's find out when they retire. 65 to 69, now we've got 70% of people retired. 70 to 74, it's 83%. 75 plus, it's 88%. But I want to share with you a report by Goldman Sachs. And the heading here is retired early, but not because they could afford it. This is a really important caveat. Goldman Sachs goes on to say significantly, 56% of retirees reported retiring earlier than they planned. Notably, almost half of all retirees retired for reasons out of their control, such as health issues, such as losing their job, caring for a family member, reducing their time to save for retirement. It just means they retired early, so they didn't have that paycheck to retire, to save additional years for retirement. Other top reasons included being tired of working. I think a lot of us can relate to that, 13%. They hit the Social Security age, which in the United States for most of us is going to be 62 is the earliest we can retire. Most of us watching this video, our full retirement age is going to be 67 years old. I believe it's if you were born 1960 or later, our full retirement age is 67. And a fortunate group of 11% were offered a early retirement package by their employer. Just 7% of retirees reported retiring because their savings were sufficient. They felt comfortable with it. So savings are important, right? That is our financial security. None of us want to retire and then have to worry the rest of our lives about money. So let's see, how do you compare when it comes to your savings in your net worth? And this is data by the Federal Reserve. It's called the Survey of Consumer Finance. And it talks about the net worth. Now, net worth is the value of all of your savings, retirement, and just normal taxable accounts. But importantly, it's the net worth is the value of all of your assets, less all of your debt. For most Americans, for most of us, it's going to be the value of our savings plus the home equity in our home. But you have to subtract out your mortgage and any car payments, any debts that you have. So you can see that young people less than 35 years old, their net worth, they're just building it up, is a little under $40,000. 35 to 44, it's a little over 135,000. 45 to 54, it's 250,000. 55 to 64, it's $364,500. 65 to 74 is 410,000. So it actually goes up when folks enter that age where they're first retired. And then they start spending that down. You can see 75 plus, it goes down right around 1/3 of $1 million. Okay, but again, this video is about how do you compare. So that was the median. Half did better, half did worse. And that's household net worth. That's not individual net worth that we just did. So now let's look at net worth by age. What does it take to be in the 75th quartile? So you're in the top 25% of all Americans. And let's just jump down to the 55 to 64. Little over $1 million, 65 to 74. So if you have $1 million, that puts you in the top 10% of all Americans from a net worth standpoint. We're going to go back to that question. How many Americans, it's kind of, as a financial advisor, it's kind of the gold standard that a lot of people share with me. I'd like to have $1 million to retire. But the question is, how many people actually have that much? I think you're going to be surprised. So this is the top quartile. Okay, the top 90th percentile net worth, you can see 55 to 64, it's about $3 million. 65 to 74, about $3 million. 75 and up. So if you've got $3 million or more, that puts you in the top 10% from a net worth standpoint of all Americans. And if you're curious, you can put in your exact amount down to the dollar at this website. It comes from ofdollarsandData.com, not dollars and cents, but ofdollarsandData.com. And you put in your age and you put in your household net worth. So if you're married, if there's a second adult living in the household, then it would be the net worth of both people, okay? And that will give you a nice chart here. You can see $1 million. So where does that place you? You can see you're, at the 65%. So you're in the top 1/3 at $1 million. So those other charts were a little bit above $1 million. I think it was closer to 1.1 million or 1.2 million. Now, how about just retirement accounts? According to the Wall Street Journal, this is from the Wall Street Journal, about half of all Americans have $0, 49.5%. have $0 saved for retirement. Another 9% have less than $10,000. And if we add this up to $99,999. So what percent of Americans have less than $100,000 saved for retirement? It's 80% if you add up those, almost 80%. So you can see, unfortunately, as a society, we're not doing as well as we want to be doing. And if you're watching this video, I suspect you're doing much better than the median, or a lot of folks are. But it's not just all about our finances. It's also about taking care of ourselves. It's also about having rich relationships. And I think a really important part about retirement is doing what we can to stay as healthy as we can. And in this chart here, I want to give credit to Jeff Nobbs, jeffnobbs.com. He got this data from the World Health Organization and shows the age that people in different countries lose their health. And you can see in Japan, if you retire at 65 in Japan, you have about a decade in front of you. It's 74.1 years before you get a cancer diagnosis, you have a heart attack, you have a stroke, something like that. A life-altering health situation. You get diagnosed with diabetes, something like that. So Japan, Singapore, Korea, you can see it's all above 73. Switzerland, Cyprus, Israel, Spain, it's about 72. France, Iceland, it's about 72. Italy goes down just a little bit, but all of those countries is about 72. Guess where the US is? Guess where Canada is? Guess where the United Kingdom is? Unfortunately, we're down a little bit above 66 years old. For the US, 66.1 years of age. That's just 13 months after the age 65 when most of us retire. So how do you compare it to other retirees and when people are retiring? One thing is to look at the money, but you know what? Also look at the quality of life. Look at how you've been able to balance things. Look at what your health is. Look at what your relationships are. Look at activities you like doing. These are all very rich, very important things that add quality to life that I would argue is every bit as valuable as what your bank account balance is. And thinking about when we retire, because of that World Health Organization data, where we only have 13 months after we retire, the average American, that's why I made this video here, which is kind of part 2 to this video. Why waiting to 65 to retire might be a big mistake. I'll see you in there. Bye-bye.